Good morning. We have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. Let's first confirm the minutes of the last meeting. The Secretariat has not received any proposals for amendment, so you all agree that the minutes of the last meeting is confirmed? Thank you. Next is information papers issued since the last meeting. There are 3. You find the details on the agenda, and I'd like to say to members that among these papers there is one from the administration. It is the update on the legislative exercise to regulate the uses of the Kai Tak Cruise Terminal. Paper number CB-41033/1415-01. I ask members to note that the administration plans to introduce the bill in July this year. Any questions? No? Next item, items for discussion at the next meeting. There was a special meeting fixed on the 16th of June. It's now changed to the 6th of June, which is a Saturday. This special meeting is a public hearing on the future development of the electricity market in Hong Kong. The administration will today present this topic. In relation to the regular meeting on the 22nd of June, it will start at 10:45. The administration proposes 2 items for discussion. First, port and logistics development. The second one is implementation of the Trade Descriptions and Fair Trade Practices Amendment Ordinance 2012. Any questions, views? You all agree? In the meeting after that, the regular meeting on the 27th of July, well, on the 7th of May, the panel circulated a letter from Mr. Albert CHAN in relation to the Hongkong Post commissioning of a consultancy report for a research. It's paper number CB-4943/1415-01. I believe you have all received this letter. Do you agree? If there are no objections, we will invite the administration to report in the July regular meeting about the review of the service of the Hong Kong Post. Any other views? No. We will go into the next item. That is the future development of the electricity market in Hong Kong. On the 31st of March this year, the administration kick-started a public consultation which will last for 3 months. I'm not going to introduce the administration's team because they've been here for many times. I asked the Secretary for the Bureau, Mr. Wong, to give us a presentation. Thank you. The scheme of control agreements entered into between the government and the 2 power companies will expire in 2018. So we will have to look into the future development. We will take into account 4 policy objectives, which is safety, reliability, affordability, and environmental protection. And we would also take into account our goal to introduce competition. We've taken into account the views we've received in the past, especially the public consultation in relation to future fuel mix. We are aware that the public has high expectations of reliability of electricity, and they have reservation in relation to buying power from outside Hong Kong. Compared to other major cities, when it comes to reliability, affordability, environmental protection and safety, Hong Kong performs quite well. But we would keep in mind our goal to introduce competition, and we have taken into account overseas experience in the opening of the market. We realize that it is a lengthy, complex and evolving process with different outcomes. Overseas experience show that the introduction of competition may not drive down tariff. And for some places, after the market has been opened up, there has been mixed outcomes. Introducing competition will increase the choices for customers. Say, for example, they can choose based on service quality, different tariff structure, etc. So we think that introduction of competition will be our long-term goal. We have also reviewed the market to see if we have the condition to introduce competition in 2018. A determining factor is whether there is sizable power supplier to be introduced to the market. And when it comes to overseas power companies, the public has expressed a reservation, but in the near future, we don't see the possibility of a new market entrant. So we will have to discuss with local power supply and to strengthen the arrangements of interconnection with mainland power companies. We think the current regulatory arrangement is sufficient, but we do think that the future agreement will have to take into account changes of the times and will have to be improved. So when it comes to permitted rates of return and increasing transparency of information, enhancing quality, service quality, and introducing a carrot and a stick in the agreement, we think that within the short term, since there is a reservation, we will not import power from the mainland, but we will increase the percentage of natural gas generation to about 50%, and we will maintain the current interim measure of nuclear output from Daya Bay nuclear power station, and nuclear power would account for 25% of total fuel mix. At the same time, we will prepare to develop more renewable energy and increase our effort to promote energy saving. And the remaining demand will be met by coal-fired generation.
In terms of demand management, the government will work hard to promote energy conservation, which I shall not dwell too much on today. We have already set a new target regarding renewable energy. We all understand that given the actual circumstances in Hong Kong, there are constraints regarding the extensive use of renewable energy. Furthermore, the cost of generation is more expensive if we use renewable energy. But we have a positive attitude towards the further promotion of renewable energy. How are we going to develop renewable energy in future will depend on the public's reaction to a possible increase in tariffs, and we would like to hear more from the public regarding this point. Finally, before the 30th of June, we would like to appeal to the public to give us their views, and we will continue to communicate with the stakeholders. We will also be conducting a public hearing on the 23rd of June. Thank you, Secretary. Now question time. We have Mr. Andrew Leung, Wong Kok Heng, Lo Wai Kwok, Mr. Tan Ka Piu, Ching Kam Lam, Mr. Yu Si Wing, Mr. Lo Chun Yin, Ho Chun Yin, Elizabeth Kwok, Mr. Ronnie Tong, Kenneth Chan and Yik Chi Ming. Do we have other members who would like to speak? I have to draw a line here because we have the council meeting at 11. We therefore need to exercise good time management. May I now propose that each of you have 4 minutes, inclusive of both the question and the answers. Mr. Andrew Leung. Thank you. I'm very happy that the government has, launched this consultation exercise. The Secretary told us that competition is a very protracted process. Since 1976, every 10 years, we would renew the agreement with the two power companies, and we always talk about introducing competition, but nothing has happened over the last 20-odd years. So I think it would appear that by 2018, you will probably extend the SOC by another 5 years. If you do not if you do not invite an independent organization to conduct a study, there's nothing you can do. You only have a few people working under you, Mr. Secretary. I don't think it's possible for you to introduce competition into the market. In many areas, at least, we say that we can open up the wholesale market. If HEC has surplus reserve, I think it's actually a lot cheaper to buy electricity from a third party than generating the power itself. But you can't do all that if you do not have the integration of the two power grids. So it all depends on whether or not the government is determined to bring in competition. If that's the case, within the short term, say in a year or two, would you set up an independent supervisory organization to explore how we can open up the market? Because if you don't do it now, you won't be able to introduce competition even in 10 years. For power generation and how we're going to separate generation and power transmission, I think we need to conduct many studies and do a lot of calculations. Of course, we do not deny that we have a very good standard in terms of power generation. But on the premise that we need to, introduce competition, what does the Secretary intend to do? Thank you, Mr. Leung, for the question. I understand what Mr. Leung is saying. The government has an independent consultant, which is providing sufficient input for the government to do its work. But I'd like to come back to the topic of competition. The biggest challenge for Hong Kong may not be like what Mr. Leung said. Whether or not we have a third player that can supply electricity on a large scale is the crucial point. If that is possible, everything else could be planned in a progressive manner. We've already required the two power companies to have separate arrangements for their account. So there are certain things which are technically feasible, but as to when we are going to implement all these measures and when will the conditions be ripe for Hong Kong to bring in, large-scale competition, we must have a third supplier who is ready to enter the market. But in the market, we talk about, distributed generation and so on. We have an open mind. So when we talk to the two power companies, we will bear in mind the need to bring in competition. If we don't have a framework to introduce competition, if somebody wants to enter the market, if you don't have the framework, even if I have set up a power generating plant, I will still not be able to sell my electricity. If you have a framework, then I will consider whether I would move into this market. I mean, say if someone wants to set up a power generating plant, are you able to give the new player the land to build the plant? Chairman, I think the government of the new term indeed has a new strategy regarding the electricity market, and I welcome that. But I also notice that in terms of stable supply of electricity. Has the government ignored the nature of the electricity business, meaning that the two companies are monopolies? And also there is the issue of the transmission of expertise or technologies. I understand that the staff and the unions of the two power companies have strong views, and they have pointed out that since the two power companies focus on maximizing profits, very often they tend to ignore, the importance of the succession of skills and so on. And the two companies have tried its best, resulting in a lack of job security for its staff. What I'm saying is that very often they would rely on the outsourcing system or the contract system, as a result of which the staff would not have a stable working environment. Instead, compared with the past, actually they are getting a package which is worse than previously. And because of that, the transmission and the succession of technology is actually at risk. And because of that, it would affect the future stability of our power supply in Hong Kong. So I'd like to take this opportunity to urge the Bureau to, during the public consultation, listen to the views of the trade unions of both power companies. And also, pay attention to the issue relating to the succession of expertise and skills, and whether or not the workers have a stable working environment, because all that would have an impact on the power supply for Hong Kong. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Wong. We said that there are four important objectives, namely safety, reliability, are two important objectives in terms of power generation, and Hong Kong people attach a lot of importance to that. As to how we can achieve these two goals, I agree with Mr. Wong that we have to rely on the staff of the two power companies to have the required skills and expertise, so that we can ensure there will be a reliable supply. As to how the two power companies manage their staff, that would be an internal business for the two companies. For Hong Kong as a whole, to achieve our two objectives, we have to pay attention to those two issues. So during the present consultation, we would like to listen to the public as to how we can achieve those four objectives. There will be a public hearing or a seminar on the 23rd of June, and we'll welcome members of the public to give us their views. And wherever possible, we want to achieve our objectives pertaining to power supply. Will you be making inquiries, with the staff of the power companies, or seek their views during the consultation period? Different political parties and organizations have made appointments to meet with us, and we are more than happy to do that. Mr. Waikin. At the last, when Mr. Yao, the Secretary for the Environment of the previous administration, also set some targets for energy conservation. He set up the target of increasing, nuclear energy up from 40% to 50%, 10% coal, and the rest renewable energy. But on the 11th of March 2011, we have the tsunami in Japan, resulting in the nuclear plant incident at Fukushima, and the public became more wary of nuclear power. And even in mainland China, the government has reviewed all the nuclear power plants which are in operation or under planning. The reality, however, is that the mainland government, having conducted a careful review, is continuing to develop nuclear energy for the future development of our electricity market and our future fuel mix. I don't think you've told us too much about your plans regarding nuclear energy. You only told us that the nuclear plant at Daya Bay will be responsible for supplying 80% of our nuclear energy. Going forward, Mrs. Secretary, how does that compare with natural gas? If there is a clean and affordable source of energy, so what is your consideration? Especially in southern China, we understand that new power plants are being planned. So can we build up some sort of partnership with those power plants? Thank you, Mr. Low. And basically, in our consultation paper, we have, sum up the mainstream views regarding our future fuel mix, natural gas up to 50%, and also increasing the use of nuclear energy. And I think we have achieved the target of the previous administration regarding the fuel mix and also improving air quality. I think we've done both. I think we're now buying nuclear power from Daya Bay. I think the tariff we pay was cheap according to the old contract, because the contract was signed a long time ago, and also the time they gave us a concessionary price. But from 2014 to 2018, we have imported more nuclear power from Daya Bay, 70 to 80%. And the tariff has already gone up, and it's not very much different from using natural gas for generation. So going forward, I think we cannot expect the nuclear power that we purchase will be as cheap as it used to be. I think that would depend on the future trends. The price of natural gas is also expensive. So have you talked to the Guangdong authorities regarding the new nuclear facilities, and have you conducted any feasibility study? Mr. Lau, first of all, we're talking about using 10% more nuclear energy after 2018. I think the two power companies will need to talk to the nuclear power company in Guangdong, and they will also need to discuss the tariff. We're talking about the scenario beyond 2020. Now, after members have finished with the questions, if there are questions which have not yet been answered, I'll give you some time to give a global response. But the question is not only about Daya Bay, but rather the supply of nuclear energy from other parts in Guangdong. Mr. Tan Ka Bill, thank you. Although in your consultation paper you say that the two power companies don't have a franchise.
But the fact is they have monopoly. As the Consumer Council said, that there is no competition, there are no risks, and they have maximized profit. And the secretary kept saying that the two power companies want to ensure reliability and safety. How to do that? Well, to purchase more power. And with the permitted rate of return, is actually the public who pay for the additional generating unit and also the laying of cable. So Mr. Wong Kok-King said that, well, they refuse to invest on manpower. That's easily understandable, because by employing more people, they will not increase permitted rates of return, but purchase of more equipment will. Yes, they have a very good record of reliability and safety, but they try to save as much as possible on manpower. You have given up on introduction of competition. What bargaining chip would you have to negotiate with them? Well, according to the consultant, you said that you can press the permitted rate of return to about 8%. Can you actually do it? Because you have already said that there won't be a third player. After 2008, the permitted rate of return has dropped, but the two power companies continue to raise tariff. For the CLP, 2009 and 10, there has been an increase of 30%. If you use a 500 kilowatt per month, then you will pay 35% more because it is progressive. So if you say that you want to increase natural gas to 50%, then of course you're going to buy more generating units, and as a result, tariff will increase. So how can you help the public? Can you push the permitted rate of return to below 5? Because in the end, it will be the public who pay the bill. In the public consultation on future fuel mix, we've said that we want to improve air quality and to reduce our carbon footprint. That's why we would like to increase the use of natural gas and other ways. And as a result, cost will increase, and then in turn tariff will increase. So the increase in tariff is because we're using cleaner energy. And we've got the support of the public, and they understand. And as to how we can make this increase more reasonable, well, I will tell you more later. First of all, let me deal with generating units. It's not about increasing its number. The research capacity will be reduced to about 20 to 30%. We will closely monitor that. We have set a new fuel mix by reducing coal-fired generation and increase natural gas generation. There will be additional cost. But we've taken into account the global trend. We do think that there is a room to further reduce the permitted rate of return. Mr. Chen, people thought that in this public consultation there would be information to show the public that the future electricity market will improve. But I'm not surprised. There is no surprise in there. They've been talking about these 4 policy objectives. To us, these policy objectives have set down the framework. Well, it will not be easy to change the status quo. You said that the reserve capacity will be kept at about 20 to 35%. I've been criticizing this level. I think it's too high. Do you have to run 4 units when one is running idle? Because it's a waste of fuel, and it also increases the burden of the public. And there is also pressure on the environment. If you see that in the competitive markets, they said that it would be about 2 to 5%. 2 to 5% is low, even in my eyes, because it may have an implication on reliability. But do we have to make it as high as 20 to 35%? Can you adjust it to maybe 10 to 15%? As you know, that Hong Kong is a small market. So do you have to have such a high reserve capacity? You've always been patting your own back, saying that, you have a very high reliability. But it's supported by the tariff paid by the public. Over the years, we've been paying high tariffs. So it will not. So you see, this is not easy to maintain the reliability of 99.999%. I think there is room to reduce the permitted rate of return to about 5 to 6%. An agreement will be signed with them, so we can have a lower rate of return set. Of course, at the beginning, when you open a market, you have to give them a higher permitted rate of return. But they've been operating for quite some time. And you reckon that in the coming future, there will not be a new player. So there is a stable market for them. So as investors, they can rest assured that the market will be stable for them. I don't need answers. I'm just giving my comments. What are we going to do at the next stage? Should we increase the percentage of natural gas generation to 50%? Does it have to be as high? We have natural gas, we have coal-fired generation, we have nuclear power. I do think that the distribution should be more even. Mr. Yu Si Wing, thank you. In theory, with competition, the service quality will increase, but when it comes to a power market, we need to have a reliable and safe market. Well, if you want it cheap, say you can use coal-fired generation, but there will be air pollution. The public will not want to see that. So I think we should first talk about the service. The government has done some research for us, setting out the problems brought by an introduction of competition. We have to be very careful. We have to fully consider the pros and cons of introducing competition. But I don't see a systematic survey or study done by the administration. What about the successful places with introduction of competition? Why are they successful? And for those who fail, why have they failed? You simply told us that these are the pros and cons, and of course for power companies, they will tell you that competition will have a lot of drawbacks. But if we have the information about countries that have successfully introduced competition, we will be in a better position to make our decision. We have looked at US, Australia, UK and Singapore. They have different experience. We have considered 4 major areas, and each country fails in some areas and succeeded in some others. So you can't simply say that it's successful in this country. But when it comes to reliability in the US, for some states, with the opening of the market, there has been serious outages. Say, for example, California. In the UK, the reserve capacity after the opening of the market, there is less incentive for the power companies to invest. So the reserve capacity is very low, about 2%. So there is concern that if a generation unit fails, then there will be outage. When it comes to price or affordability, at the beginning, when the market was opened up, a lot of national companies have been privatized. For some countries, the tariffs have dropped, but for some others, say for UK in the past decade, every year we're talking about a 13% increase In Australia, over a few years, there has been an accumulated increase of about 80%. So we can't just in general say that it's successful in this country and is a failure in others, because there are different experiences. On the 27th of May, we received a table, but it's just a running account. But at least you can give us more information about the different areas, say for example the 4 policy objectives and how these countries perform. If you have the information, please supply it to us afterwards. Next, Mr. Stephen Ho. I would like to criticize about the high level of reserve capacity. I found that the last time when we had a large research capacity, it was a time when manufacturing industries moved to the mainland, and there was a sharp drop in demand. But well, we can foresee the increase in demand, say 1 or 2% a year, and there is also energy saving promotion. So do we still have to follow the international standard of 20 to 30%? Can we do something to reduce it to say 18 to 25% or even 15%? That would be better. So will it be very risky? And we see the expenditure of the 2 power companies is mostly spent on the procurement of fuel. Of course, there is also the equipment and generation unit. So what support have you given to these 2 power companies with the procurement of fuel? If I'm running a business, well, there's just a handful of people who own gas fields. And when the government requires 50% of power generation coming from natural gas, of course, then they will have to make careful calculation. Yangcheng is going to be exhausted soon, and there is an increasing oil prices. So now they use the east-west pipeline. So it costs about 1.2 per unit. And for nuclear power, it's about 60 to 70 cents. So you see there is a big difference. So is it the case that they have small bargaining power when it comes to procurement from gas fields? Well, there are a number of questions asked.
Let me address the question of research capacity. First of all, the 2 power companies, especially one of those 2, has seen its research capacity declining. During the review in 2013, the 2 power companies had proposals to increase the number of generating units, and we successfully shelved them. One of the generating units of a power company will need to be retired, but we don't think that we need to replace it. So the research capacity of one of the power companies will go down by about 20%, or 20 to 30%, or below 35%. So it will stay between the level of 20 to 30% until the year 2018. Internationally, the standard is from 20 to 40%. In Japan, they have more than 40%. In Singapore, 90%. I think Hong Kong is a very small place. You don't compare Hong Kong with a jurisdiction with which is very large in size. So I don't think this is a reasonable comparison. We see that Hong Kong's development will be very progressive. I don't think we are going to have massive industrial development. That's why I said that in Singapore the reserve is about 90-odd%. But anyway, we will monitor the situation to ensure that the research capacity will stay at a reasonable level. What about the fuel mix? Dr. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you. The government has a clear objective to provide safe, reliable electricity that is environmentally friendly and affordable. Regarding safety and reliability, I think the two power companies have performed very well. But in terms of reasonable tariff and environmental friendliness, it would appear that, according to the government's consultation paper, that the public is not very satisfied. The green groups are not satisfied either. So talking about whether the tariff is reasonable, the government is proposing to increase the fuel mix and topping up natural gas to 50%. But the government is not giving us a chart. If it is not 50%, how about 60 or 40%? How will that impact on the tariff going forward? For example, if we adopt a 50% target for natural gas, how much does the two power companies have to invest in terms of generation units? And now you propose that the ROR should be 6 to 8%. How did you arrive at this figure? How about a rate of return of 6, 7, 8, 10%, or even 5? So without such data, then the public, it's very difficult for the public to really, come to any, valid conclusions. I hope the government can give us some projections so that we can use them as reference to understand what will be the implications of different fuel mixes. On environmental protection, how can we ensure that the two power companies will really conserve energy? Some green groups have mentioned earlier as to whether or not we could have a sort of carrot and stick, mechanism, and do we have a target? Apparently, the government doesn't seem to have any plans to do that. On renewable energy, how many percent will it make up the future fuel mix? And do we have the prerequisites to use more renewable energy? Secretary. I will start, and my colleagues will supplement on the details. First of all, the consultation paper has summed up the feedback we received during the previous consultation regarding the fuel mix. To achieve a target regarding carbon intensity and air quality by 2020, using 50% of our fuel mix being natural gas, would be the basic, minimum requirement, without which we will not be able to achieve our environmental target. Originally, we proposed 60%, 50% is already lower. I agree that we need to use renewable energy and conserve energy. Conserving energy is the most efficient way. We already have a penalty and incentive scheme in place. Perhaps we can, further enhance that mechanism so that the incentive could be pegged to the energy conserved. The so-called distributed, generation. There are different ways. For example, converting, waste to energy, and so on and so forth. We need to set, provide the incentive for the market, lowering the threshold for people to, to access the grid. We already have a carrot and stick mechanism in place. If the two power companies, conduct more, energy audit, and if they achieve certain targets, they will be rewarded. Hon Chan, I think from the public's perspective, this consultation is focused on the question of tariff. In the past, whenever the two power companies increased their tariff, we would, as a matter of routine, object and protest and organize signature campaigns. Some members of the public have told us that this is what is laid down in the SOC. What can we do, and what can we as councillors do? I think this is the crucial point. The government has also published a consultancy report on the question of the permitted rate of return, which could be adjusted downwards. The government has suggested a figure of 68%, which apparently there seems to be room for downward adjustment compared with 9 to 10%. But then the public is now asking whether it could be lower further to 45% or 3 to 4%. So I hope the government will seriously consider, that part of the consultancy report that could be disclosed so that we could use it as reference. Otherwise, a crucial piece of information is missing in our discussion. And secondly, when you talk to the two power companies about the SOC, I don't think whatever method you adopt, I think the main objective is how we can conserve energy and develop renewable energy. I hope these two targets will become the most important, goals, when you negotiate with two power companies, especially whether you can adjust, the peak demand load, and then if that load is high, then they would make investments on the assets, and then the additional cost will be transferred onto our shoulders. So if we could lower the peak load, how much can we do that? Without any data, I don't think we can talk about how much we can lower that margin. And also on enhancing efficiency, I think there could be a carrot and stick mechanism regarding the peak demand, and if they could successfully conserve the energy, then they could be rewarded. If they fail, then they could be punished, and that can help the public, save the tariff that they have to pay. I understand that wind energy or wind farm is controversial, but a couple of days an expert suggested that if we can have a renewable energy system at a community level that could access the grid, then of course we need the government to come up with policies to support that. But at the moment, everything is, entrusted to the two power companies. Electricity is so expensive, and then, consumers have to pay for whatever capital investment the two power companies do. So perhaps we can have an experiment regarding the use of renewable energy at a community level, starting with the hospitals and so on, or using solar panels. And if the power generated could be, connected to the power grid, then I think that could become the incentive in future for further development of renewable energy. So I hope the government can not only lower the rate of return, it should also, adopt, energy conservation and as the main target when negotiating the two power companies. I understand what Mr. Chan is saying. Our document has a positive view regarding distributed power generation and the use of renewable energy, and this is certainly something that anyone can do. Ronnie Tong, Chairman. When I heard the Secretary, after hearing the Secretary, I'm really disappointed. The Secretary said that it is difficult to bring in competition and the people of Hong Kong do not want to buy electricity from the mainland. I don't think I can accept this kind of mindset. If you offer any choice, it should be for the users to decide which supply they can accept. Whether or not the supply is reliable, the consumers will have to consider that. On the question of competition, if we have to face so many constraints, and the two power companies are very much aware of those constraints, what bargaining chips do we still have to really bargain with the two power companies? I think we are captive customers, and we can't do without electricity. So how can we talk to the two power companies and to review their scheme of control agreement? and how can we have improvements or lower the rate of return and so on. So I don't see how I don't see the secretary having any chips on his hand. So how can you then negotiate with the two power companies without such bargaining powers, Mr. Secretary? Well, in the consultation, what we are saying is that our most important objective is about the four objectives: safety, reliability, reasonable tariff, environmental protection. Of course, some people suggest that it's a question of choice. So the issue is, how do we look at the choice? What is most important is that those four objectives are the most important and they apply equally in any jurisdiction. And then we can next ask ourselves, what is the choice before us? The paper has clearly, discussed these issues as to how we should negotiate with the two power companies. That is something that we would need to do at a later stage. But in the next three months, what we need to do now is to ask the public to consider our proposals. Of course, there are different tactics we can rely upon. If we do not agree with the scheme of arrangement, then there are other ways for us to do it. And when we talk to the two power companies, we can adopt different strategies. But I think the focus now should be on the consultation paper. Of course, consultation is important. I never deny that. But still, the SAR government has this duty. If the government believes that the present framework of electricity supply, whether or not it is acceptable or whether it should be improved upon, I think the public's view is very clear. We hope that this framework for power supply could be improved. So my question for you is very simple. If you say everything is not possible, then how can you convince the two power companies to automatically surrender and to cut the tariffs? So you must come up with a proposal first. So the question is this: if you could really threaten the two power companies so that they will be willing to talk to you and make concessions in the negotiations, then you should propose that there should be competition. You say that it is not possible to bring in competition. If you say that, then I'm really disappointed. Chairman, when the secretary spoke, he kept saying that we need to conserve energy. He talked about the need for promotion. But if you only you consider the users as the target of promotion, it doesn't serve any purpose unless you give them any incentives. Otherwise, if the tariffs become even more expensive, you won't even have any incentives. So do you have any technical solutions to make the public feel that it is convenient and that they can actually save on the electricity bills? If you do not rely on these methods to encourage the public to use less electricity, then the problem cannot be resolved. One trend now is that in different countries and jurisdictions, whether it's their power companies or the government, they are now installing smart power meters, and people can use the apps on their cell phones to control the use of electricity so that it can help the users conserve energy. In Hong Kong, I think some power companies are conducting such tests, but it's done on a very small scale. I don't know whether or not this is because they don't really want to do it, or they think that it's very expensive or costly. So what I'd like to know is what the government has done to promote this. I'm not in favor of the government subsidizing everyone or everything, because the two power companies are already making a lot of profit. But for bus companies which is not making so much profit, you will still subsidize the procurement of environmental buses. So what tactics do you have to force the power companies to do it? And also, when you build so many public housing units, will you also introduce these energy conservation measures as well?
I see that in Singapore they have a smart household. They let public housing start and use it as an example to take forward energy conservation. So have you worked together with other government departments to promote this? Thank you, Mr. Mok. You have mentioned exactly what we have in mind. We have talked about making better use of technology in energy conservation. When it comes to public housing units, there are some ways when tenants can make use of technology to find out more about energy consumption. And as to how we can make better use of smart metering, the two power companies are concerned about this as well. They have done some tests to see how effective they are. If you support making use of technology to conserve energy, then you can support our agreement and we can do more. But the administration has failed to explain to us in detail how it is done. It's a very open-ended question, and in the end you are going to do very little. You have to be very specific, and it's not difficult. Secretary. This consultation is on the framework and it will be touched on. Mr. Frankie Yik. Well, I see that in the public consultation paper, the government focuses on 4 things. And from the consultation paper, I see that you propose to reduce the permitted rate of return. And if the reduction is small, it may not offset the increase in cost in the increased use of gas, natural gas. Well, just now someone mentioned that maybe the administration should look at nuclear power again, because whether you use it or not, there are more nuclear plants being built on the mainland. And Mr. Chan Kam Lam mentioned about reviewing the percentage of natural gas and also the reserve capacity. So can you come up with something concrete? Mr. Liu? Our proposal is that when it comes to nuclear import, there will be more coming from Daya Bay nuclear power station, 80% more, and that is only an average. In summer, we obtain about 90%, almost at the maximum. And if we are to get power from other nuclear power stations, in the public consultation last year, in principle, we think that using grid power is more reliable, because if there's some problems with one power source, it can be complemented or supplemented by some other power sources. This time, we're only talking about 2020. For further ahead in the future, it will be a different topic. So you will seriously consider this possibility, that is, by making use of grid access arrangements. You have also mentioned about some other overseas countries. The UK is quite advanced. There was a drop in tariff, but it increased later. Have you studied the success or otherwise of the UK practice? If we are to open the market, we have to make sure that the public will benefit, that they will not see a drop in tariff only to see it increase again later. I have given you overseas examples. Perhaps I will give you further information about these overseas practices after the meeting. The last member, Mr. James Tian. I have a very strong view about this new fuel mix, not just from an economic perspective. Well, you have responded and increased the percentage of nuclear power and natural gas. The latest mix is 25% of nuclear power, 50% of natural gas, and 25% from coal-fired generation. Well, you have responded to public aspiration, and I welcome that. But when it comes to coal-fired generation, there will be greenhouse gas, there will be CO2, it will increase air pollution, and there will be suspended respiratory particulates and other pollutants. And they are something that Hong Kong people have to face with every day. It's the trend to reduce the reliance on coal. And now with the latest mix is a quarter. And is the highest amount options 1 and 2. You should consider following option 1, which is 10% as a starting point. We are an international city. We are very concerned about air pollution, so you need to consider that. If that is the case, you need to increase natural gas to 65%, or you will have to increase the percentage of nuclear power. I've spoken to the CLP. They said that with it increased to 50%, with the two generating units in Black Point, they will need another $100 million, and there is no land. So so there is a cap. It will be capped at 50%. It cannot be increased. So you can only think about nuclear power, and nuclear power will generate no pollution. And when it comes to safety, the Daya Bay nuclear power station has been running for 20 years, and there has been no problem. And when it comes to public sentiment, well, the New People's Party have done a poll. 44% of respondents said that purchasing more nuclear power from a new nuclear power station on the mainland, it will be welcomed and supported. The safety parameters of new power plants are quite high. Well, you've almost used up your time. You need to give them time to respond. I just want to state my stance. I've also asked the CLP that if the public and the government support the increase of a percentage of nuclear power, they will explore into it. And well, you see that a country welcomes it, and power companies are not resistant. But you don't consider keeping coal-fired generation at 10%. Why not? You don't even mention it. There were different options in the last public consultation. For short term, Daya Bay is the only station that can supply nuclear power to Hong Kong. But we're talking about a long-term new nuclear power station. I'm talking about a 2020 fuel mix. There are a lot of restrictions. For the longer term, we keep an open mind. I have some questions for you, Secretary, about power generation. We have heard from the public about their concerns. First, affordability, reliability, and environmental protection. when it comes to opening the market and how to introduce new players, how it affects affordability. This is something that we all want to know. And I've heard from a US expert saying that opening up the market can introduce competition, thereby increasing choices, but reliability may vary. Tariff may not be driven down because of the power distribution technology, and members have spoken on it. Consumers may not really have more choices, but without opening up the market, similarly, there are controversies. We are going to implement the competition ordinance. Monopolizing a market will face litigation. In the US, when it comes to opening up the power market, there has been numerous litigations in different cities and states between the government and companies. The competition ordinance will come into effect soon. So when it comes to possible litigations and legal matters, what have you done in preparation for that? Because there may be a lot of legal challenges. Secretary, there are two parts here. First, about our stance. We have the 4 energy policy objectives. Opening up the market is subject to constraints. We have to make preparations. We have to put in place conditions to enable a more distribution network. We have to improve regulation, say for example, separating the accounts of the grid and the plant. We have to make full preparation. When it comes to legal matters, it may be better to discuss it in another occasion. If the guidelines are not clear, then people will make use of the loopholes. Very often in a litigation, the more dominating you are, the better chance you will win. So if your future guideline is clear, it will reduce the chance of contention or disputes. Well, the current scheme of control agreement does not give franchise to power companies. Other players, if they meet conditions, say for example safety, reliabilities, regulations, then they are allowed to enter the market. When we were talking to the competition commission, they did not mention anything about legal disputes.
I'll give you a few minutes to make a global response to the points made by members. For example, on power supply and the procurement of electricity, supply of nuclear energy from China, the question of safety. Now, when the report is published, so what will be your direction? Or if there were other issues which have not yet been addressed, would you like to make a global response now? Thank you. What I'm concerned about, what I'd like to respond to members' points are that if you look at the liberalization of markets in other countries, we will provide a written response to help you better understand the experience of market liberalization in other countries. And secondly, the present paper sums up the results of the consultation on the future fuel mix last year. So this is a direction that we've mapped out recently. As for the long-term question of nuclear energy and grid access, that's for the long term, and it's beneficial for Hong Kong. So in future we'll conduct more studies and provide more information for the community to discuss the question of nuclear energy, grid access, renewable energy, and so on. At the appropriate time, we will provide more information to the community so that in the long term we can have more discussion. But the summary now is that in 2020, we're talking about the fuel mix of 50% renewable energy or natural gas, and by supplying 80% of our nuclear energy. In the long term, as to how we will liberalize the market, we have an open mind. But for the short term, and for various reasons, we believe that sticking to the present SOC is a more balanced approach. As to how we plan for more competition in the market, so either we can require the two companies to provide more information regarding the separate accounts, or separating the power generation aspect of the business to the grids. And also there could be more community generation so that we can introduce more competition in the market. On the procurement of electricity, do we have the right to choose? And after we've made our choice, do we have any preference that we can propose to the supplier? We have a fuel mix. I don't know in future how much electricity they will supply to Hong Kong. So, and also in that mix, how much would be made up of nuclear energy, how much is coal to be generated using coal or renewable energy? Chairman, we are now proposing that after 2018, we will conduct a detailed study regarding transmission of electricity from the mainland. Many members of the public are concerned about the question of reliability. In that study, we will not only look at reliability, we will also be looking at other technical and financial aspects, and also the fuel mix that we're going to import. After we've concluded that study, there will be another round of consultation before we decide on the way forward. I think with that we may now conclude our discussion of this item. So, Mr. Secretary, I'd like to thank you and your team for attending our meeting this morning. Next, we move on to the next item, which is update on the follow-up actions arising from the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the collision of vessels near Lamma Island on October 1st, 2012. The administration will report to us the findings of that report and the follow-up work which has been done by the government. And this topic involves two legislative proposals. First of all, implementing the proposal to install navigation guides on vessels, and also enhancing So if I may now ask the Deputy Secretary to walk us through the paper. We have a tight schedule, so if it is already the paper, you don't need to repeat them. Thank you. I think the Chairman already said that the Transport and Housing Bureau in the past had published its report regarding the investigation into the collision incident, and we've been periodically updating this panel on the progress. The present paper will give you a report on the progress over the last year or so. So the major findings of the study is already listed in the paper. There are one or two items that if we have the consent of this panel, we will proceed to enact legislation to amend the legislation so that we can implement the proposals. And they are basically about, the request to increase the third-party insurance coverage, and also the proposal to set up a fund to help the victims of, incidents at sea. But given the cost effectiveness, it is recommended that we do not take forward that proposal. And the Secretary also chaired a steering committee on reform of the Marine Department, and they are now putting forward many recommendations to the Marine Department. Details are already in the paper. Myself and the Director of the Marine Department will be happy to take your questions. It's now question time. Mr. Wong Kok Heng, Yik Chi Ming, Yu Si Wing, 4 minutes each. Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Chairman, on October 1st, 2012, after the tragedy happened, I have been following up on this matter until now. Today, I would like to ask two questions of the government. First of all, for the watertight doors, I think there were officers of the Marine Department which were in dereliction of the duties, which were negligent, and two former officials of the Marine Department had been prosecuted. I'd like to ask whether you still have other officials who have been in dereliction of their duties who will be prosecuted but have not yet been prosecuted. Of course, you don't need to give me the names, and it's not right that you review the names. I'd like to just know what has been the progress so far. And secondly, in the paper, the government said that it will not be setting up, a fund to help victims of accidents at sea. If the government does not intend to provide for this traffic accident victims assistance scheme, and you only provide for third-party insurance coverage. Now, if there should be another unfortunate incident at sea in future, then the victims and the families receive sufficient support. Now, who would like to respond? Deputy Secretary. And first of all, to answer Mr. Wong's first question. Mr. Wong is concerned about the criminal prosecution of Marine Department staff. The DOJ, in response to the families of the victims, to engage external counsel to assist with the prosecution. The DOJ told the family members that they really understand the aspiration and will seriously consider the request. Regarding the independent traffic accident victim assistance scheme, the main consideration here is that we have a much smaller number of vessels than vehicles in Hong Kong. Even if you include the vessels coming from outside of Hong Kong, we're only talking about a small number. For such a small number of people to shoulder a potentially very large amount of compensation, the consultant's advice is that unless the industry is willing to commit a lot of resources, otherwise it simply cannot be done. Earlier on in our discussion with the industry, they told us that, well, many of the operators in the shipping industry are small operators, and they told us that they can only afford to pay no more than $100 a year. So therefore, it's not very likely that we can really implement such a scheme. In other countries, they have traffic accident victims assistance scheme, but they do not have a marine traffic accident victims assistance scheme. The member's question was that if there should be another incident in future and accidents and fatalities. Well, already in Hong Kong we have different types of funds in place, both which are run by private organizations to assist the victims and the families with the funeral arrangements and so on. And the government, through the Home Affairs Department and the Social Welfare Department, we have some funds ourselves that can help. Past experience shows that such funds have committed resources to help those in need. Director, I think you please be more concise. So I don't think so. Assistance will be given to those people who require assistance. Mr. Yik Chi Ming, thank you. I have 3 questions, and I'll be brief. Regarding the government's proposal to enact legislation to compel the vessels to be installed with VHF radio and radars, I have always, put forward this request, made this precious point with the government. That is, the trade is finding it very difficult to recruit new blood. According to your present proposal, you require them to go through the training and learn all the jargons like alphas and betas. Once you implement these requirements, there won't be anyone operating these vessels. I agree that you need to require such training, but would you adjust the training requirements for those who are over the age of 60 who satisfy the basic skill requirements? Normally, you require them to actually communicate in English, but it will be impossible to require those, coxswains and operators to communicate in English. And secondly, the government has set up a fund for the training of people in the shipping industry, but the response is not very good. So will you have another meeting with the industry to learn about the difficulties that they face and find out why they're not able to attract new blood to join the industry? Because if this scheme cannot be implemented, it will not help the industry. And the industry will simply be in decline. Thirdly, you're proposing top up the insurance coverage, the third-party insurance coverage. Recently in the newspaper, it has been reported that the shipping industry is now, complaining if you increase the premium they have to pay, they simply cannot afford it. And also, what is the rationale for requiring vessels carrying 12 people or less that the liability cover should be increased from 1 to 5 million? Because the possibility of accidents happening to these vessels are very slim. And why are you increasing the liability cover by several folds? Now, first of all, we understand the difficulties faced by the industry. Regarding these new requirements and the training arrangement, this is the result of our negotiation with industry. Regarding the VHF radios, we've talked to the Telecommunication Authority, and I think the training requirements will be similar to the operators of, but they do not need to learn those jargons. So the operator can, speak in Cantonese, so that when there's an accident, if we could, convey the message so that the relief, the assistance could arrive at the scene as soon as possible, that would suffice. Thirdly, third-party insurance coverage. Back in 2003, it was proposed that the coverage be increased from 1 million to 5 million and then 10 million. At the time, that was what the industry could afford. 10 years of lapse now. For individual operators, the premium may go up a little bit, but it will give him better protection in the event of an accident. So if he has taken up the coverage, his liability will be covered. Now, so the committee also believes that this is appropriate. And we've consulted the local, vessel operators, and they also agree that this is reasonable.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, it was in April last year when the fund started. So after the implementation of this fund, that you will be able to get a maximum of $30,000 a year. We have received about a dozen applications or so, and they've only started, so we think it will be more popular later. And there is an additional $18,000 on top of the $30,000 for the to subsidize the course. And as to how this fund can be more effective to encourage more people to join the trade, well, the government will take up more proactive measures, and we will discuss further with the trade to see how more people can be attracted into this trade. Mr. Yu Siwing? I'm still concerned about, after the second phase improvement measures, whether some coxswains will leave the trade because of the tremendous pressure. There are a lot more requirements. They may not be very high-tech, but still, they are new equipment, and these people may think, well, they are getting old, and they don't want to touch things like that. So have you done any statistics as to how much the wastage will be and whether manpower will be replenished to maintain the operation of vessels? And at the third phase, there will be replenishment of manpower. How can new people be attracted to join the trade to make up for the wastage? Has the trade spoken to the administration to see if this trade is sustainable, or is it the case that the administration doesn't really care and they will leave the trade in to their own devices? Will the government support them? Well, we don't have scientific data, but we are in close liaison with the trade. In the second phase, requirements of coxswains and related wastage, I have not really heard anything about it, because we have supporting measures. Say, for example, the radar course, say 20 to 30 hours. It doesn't have to be taken in one go. It will be spread out over a number of days for several hours a day. So in this way, the disturbance cost will be kept to a minimum. And there will be an 80% of reimbursement from the fund when it comes to their course fees. So the content, the mode of these courses are not decided by the government. We have spoken to the trade union before we decide. Anything to add? Perhaps I will supplement. we think that manpower training is about career prospect and salary. When it comes to salary or wages, as we've said, that starting from last year, every month there will be a subsidy of 1,500, lasting for 12 months. After they have set the examination, there will be another $12,000 given to them. And if they would like to improve themselves, they can apply for refund of examination or course fees. There is a tripartite organization with the trade, trainings, institutions, and the government. We have regular meetings to look into suitability of new courses and how to attract new blood. Next, Dr. Fernando Zhang. On the 1st of October 2012, there was the vessel collision disaster. 2 years later, 2 government officials were charged, and prior to that, there were 2 coxswains being convicted. According to the investigation, 17 officials from the Marine Department have committed misconduct. So far, we have not seen any details of this investigation. Neither have the family of those injured or passed away. After the disaster, a number of irregularities have been reviewed. We see that the Marine Department is actually fraught with flaws. Now there is the task force, and there is also the steering committee to supervise the work of the operation. We also have a new director of Marine. But all we have is just several paragraphs of about several pages outlining the reform of the Marine Department. That itself is a bit perfunctory. Apart from giving us brief information about delineation of duties, procedures, communications and reports, these are just general items. You said that a lot of improvement recommendations have been implemented, and there is also the steering committee on systemic reform of the MD. Can you give us information about what the current situation is and how it's different from the past? Of course, we will look forward. We would like to have a full account of the internal investigation, and we also want to know what you have done to prevent future occurrence of similar incidents. I can only give you a brief outline. For further information, we will supply the information in an information paper. The Commission of Inquiry has identified some drawbacks. Say, for example, some of the practice has only been passed on verbally. There is no documentary record. And it's also been identified that there is insufficient communication. Maybe some problems have been identified, but the message have not been passed on. The steering committee has started its work a long time ago. Say, for example, when it comes to verbal communication, we now have a central repository. When it comes to practice or safety guidelines, there has been constant improvement in the past. Maybe individual person will have their own notebook to record these guidance. But with the central repository, all the guidelines and guidances, most updated versions are uploaded. And when it comes to poor communications, we have put in place a system that when there is a disagreement, well, the matter will be elevated to the deputy director. And if that is the case, then it will go to the director. We have actually done something. When it comes to information technology, the MD will be one of the six first government departments to adopt the ERPS. Can you give us a detailed report? What about the internal investigation? Mr. James Toh. Well, I also want to ask about the internal investigation. Families of the deceased and injured asked me if I have read the report. And I told them that the government said that, well, paragraph 31. That's paragraph 31. On a number of occasions, some families, including Mrs. Koo, said that they don't mind legislators reading the report first because for public interest they may have to follow up on the report with the government. And they don't think that they mind about being fair. In May last year, they thought that it would be all right because there was still time. But then they found out that it's been a year and it's taken too long. And so on a number of occasions they asked if legislators can be shown the report first because they need to follow up on certain issues. Well, why do you have to delay? Why do you drag your feet? Whose decision is it to not show the report to legislators? Well, paragraph 31st. Whose decision it is that the report will be shown to the legislators under confidentiality at the same time when family members are given access. Let me answer members' questions. We understand that the public wish to find out the truth, and on a number of occasions the secretary said that they set out the reasons why they cannot review fully the report because it may have. No, I'm not asking for a full disclosure. I'm asking when legislators will be shown the report under confidentiality. Whose decision is it? The secretary's? You're wasting my time. You have completely missed my question. I did not say anything about publishing the report. May I continue? Some individual members of the families, they have made use of the legal procedures to seek to peruse the report. The Department of Justice have agreed to show them the report with some parts being whited out. And the THB will make arrangements with legislators to show them the report under confidentiality. Well, families are now communicating with the DOJ on access to the investigation through legal proceedings. And at the right time, the Legislative Secretariat will be informed of about the report
You not heard my question. Are you daydreaming? Do you have a rough timetable for members? I think I've asked my question. You're just reading the paper all over again. You are the Deputy Secretary. I think I asked the same question Mr. James Toh asked. That is, do you have a rough timetable for us? Thank you. According to the order of the court, the DFJ would need to provide the investigation report to the families of the deceased on or before the 13th of June. Part of the details in that report will be hidden. We will maintain, close liaison with the DFJ, and at the appropriate time, we will come up with that arrangement with electrical members. When would that be? Roughly, is it the 15th of July or the 15th of July or June? Well, many members have just joined our discussion. At the beginning, I've already said that, well, today we have a council sitting, and I will need to exercise, stringent time management. So for members, I ask that you keep your questions and answers, as concise as possible. And after you've asked the questions, I'll ask the Permanent Secretary or the Director to make a global response to the questions raised. Chairman, he said that he will talk to our Secretariat. Does it mean that everything has now been settled and all they need is to give us a report? I'm worried that they will take another few months to talk to our Secretariat. Well, I think early on I already made my decision, perhaps in your global response. For those questions which members think you've not fully addressed, I'll give you a few minutes to respond. Mr. Kenneth Chan, thank you. I hope the Deputy Secretary will not read from the script again. Are you telling this Council that on the 13th of June, that report will be disclosed to the family of the deceased and also given to electrical members subject to the confidentiality agreement and undertaking? Are you talking about the 13th of June? Well, the court order says that the DFJ must, on that day or before that day, provide that report to family of the deceased with part of the content covered. After we made an arrangement with the DFJ, we will, through electrical members and subject to the confidentiality undertaking, read that report, part of which is covered. How much longer after the 13th of June will you need? After we've come up with the arrangement, the DFJ will liaise with the Secretariat as soon as possible. I'm not happy with that response because this incident has been delayed for more than a year. At around the same time last year, I moved a motion requesting that this report be disclosed to the public, and then we've been waiting a year since. If there's any further delay now, the responsibility certainly will lie squarely with the government. And this is totally unfair to the public and the family members of the deceased. In this paper, I've also discovered something which really is very, very unsettling. That is your recommendation regarding the safety vest. You're making a requirement that such vessels should be equipped with safety vests. Or is it the case that the government is now not, abiding by the law? Is it that the passengers have to, have their own safety vests? I think you should enforce the law. But the industry has all kinds of reservations saying that, the adults may mix up the safety vests with children's vests and so on. And then you said you need to engage a consultant to conduct a study. Just, safety vests for children alone, apparently you are reneging on your earlier promise. So is it now safe for children to ride on these vessels? Let me explain the present ordinance. The present ordinance said that if you board a vessel, if I think safety there is 100% provision of safety vessels for safety vests for adults, and 5% of the safety vests are for children. At the moment, the ships are fully in compliance with that requirement. But whether or not 5% is sufficient for children, members have put forward their opinion on different occasions. There is also a suggestion that it should be 100%. If you have 100 people on board, then the vessel should have 100 safety vests for 100 adults and a safety vest for 100 children. When we talk to the industry, they say that this has cost application. Each vest may cost $200 to $300. For many of these passengers, they're rather small. If you look at some of the ferries and or vessels traveling from Tin to Taiho, they're not very large vessels. If they have to be equipped with 200 safety vests, and when one tries to, access these safety vests, it could be a very confusing situation. For the same safety vests, I think they could be. There are such vests which could be worn by both children and adults. But over the years, the standard for safety vests has been upgraded, and we've asked an expert at the Polytechnic University to help us develop a safety vest that can satisfy the present-day standard that can be worn by both children and adults, so that we can address the safety issue. So in other words, you are lagging behind the latest international standard, and therefore we have to actually, take care of our own, safety. But I think you should really, tighten up the safety standard. Mr. Tan Ka Pio, thank you. Two questions. First of all, a question regarding the safety vests. If the industry says that they don't have room to place all the safety vests, then can you conduct a study as to whether we can have a safety vest that can be used for both adults and children? But after you've come to that conclusion, what happens if the industry told you that they can't afford to buy these safety vests? Because according to your logic, they would need to replace all of the safety vests. And secondly, I'm also the district councillor from the outlying district. Regarding your proposal to set up the traffic accident victim assistance scheme for marine accident victims, you say you're not going to do it. A year ago, there was an accident in Chiang Chau. A New World ferry was involved in a collision. More than 70 people was hurt. There was no fatality, but I understand that some people became paralyzed as a result of that accident. Well, the community may think that eventually there had not been any fatality and there's not a lot of press coverage. But even now, the victim doesn't know whom to go after for compensation. And many people are saying that, or for road traffic, you'd have such a scheme. Why can't you have a similar scheme for marine traffic? You say it can't be done, but at least you can, you should also provide for such, protection for outlying island residents who need to ride on these vessels by incorporating them under the victim assistance scheme for road traffic accidents. Now, if it is possible that we can, right now the vessels are equipped with 105 safety vests. Coming back to the question of cost, I believe they will not be very expensive. Previously, we have whenever we announce new requirements and new measures, at the appropriate time the government will provide for a subsidy. But we cannot say for now whether there will be any subsidy in future and so on. But looking at the previous schemes, installation of radar and so on, we've given it some consideration that we're able to come up with a subsidy, but not in the case of the wireless devices. But I think we will have a more complete assessment after the consultant has concluded his report. Regarding the traffic accident victim assistance scheme for marine traffic, the main consideration is that the number of vessels are much smaller than those of vehicles. And if we were to set up a scheme that is similar to the one for road traffic, the amount that the industry has to pay will be quite substantial. And it's not just in Hong Kong. We've engaged a consultant to take a look at the situation in other jurisdictions, and he found that for those jurisdictions where they have a similar traffic accident victims assistance scheme for road traffic, there is none for marine traffic. Mr. Teng asked whether we can merge such a scheme with the scheme for road traffic. We will certainly, be willing to consider that. But some residents have to rely on the ferries to make a living. They have to ride on these ferries every day. For the sake of fairness, for people, there are some people who have to ride on buses every day. There are people who have to ride on the ferries. Shouldn't you also cover these people who rely on the ferries as a means of transport? Well, I think the paper has also mentioned, I think we have some previous experience that victims of marine accident, if they have an urgent need for assistance, we still have other funds in Hong Kong, so does the government, which will be able to provide assistance for the victims. In Part 3 of the paper, we said we say that we will top up the insurance coverage for these vessels, and I think that would also be able to help the victims. I also have a question for the Permanent Secretary and the Director. Of course, there are certain incidents that we don't want to see happening, like the marine accident, which happened. But one can see that one wonder whether there is a staffing problem with the Marine Department, the vessel inspection officers and marine officers. Do you still have a staff shortage problem? Of course, you need to train your people, and you need people to join the department before there could be training. So after this incident, what have you done in terms of recruitment? And do you still have problems with your recruitment? And do you still have a problem of staff shortage, or will such work continue? And if so, I think the shortage may affect the overall operations of the department. So could you tell us what exactly the situation? Mr. Teng Ka-piu said that we're all concerned about marine safety. So regarding ship inspection and so on, if you are understaffed, then we are really concerned. For the Marine Department, we have our marine officers and surveyors. For these two grades, there's been we have had a staff shortage for quite a long time. This is because for a period of time, going back to 2003 and 2004, there has been a drastic drop in the number of people who would like to join the shipping industry. For the marine officer and the shipping vessel surveyors, I think in the short term, to address that shortage, we have adjusted the entry requirements. So in other words, previously we required the job applicant to have the license of coxswain plus an experience, but we've lowered that requirement. As a result, the number of applicants have gone up, and we're able to recruit people. We hope that they will take up our job offers. This is now the time we are now offering employment to these successful candidates, but we're still short of staff. As a short-term measure for those staff who are about to retire, we are willing to let them stay on and engage them as non-civil servants to help us make up for the shortfall. In the long term, we've asked an international marine consultant in the UK to look at the overseas experience, because this problem is not unique for Hong Kong, but it's also a problem for other jurisdictions. In other countries, they will train people with other qualifications to become, shipping with surveyors and so on. So I think the consultant should be able to give us its report soon, after which we will be willing to give, a further account to members.
You have sufficient manpower to deal with the work. We have a manpower shortage, but we will do our best. But you can see that we can still maintain our service, but we have an acute manpower shortage. Would you increase incentive to attract people to join? When will you be able to replenish the manpower shortage? It's not just about pay, because we already offer the pay of a professional. But 10 years ago, when we encountered manpower shortage, there was a reward scheme. And we're happy to see that in recent years, say for example for the VTC, we see that there are more people joining the trade. The graduates, about 80% of the graduates would join the trade, so we have dozens of people. You need to communicate with the trade. Long-term manpower shortage is not a good thing. As I said, I would give you some time to respond to questions you haven't replied. I give you 4 minutes. Deputy Secretary. Thank you. I thank members for their concern about what improvement measures have been implemented to enhance marine safety. The MD has outlined improvement measures. Some of them requires legislative amendments, and we hope members will support us. There are also other follow-up actions being undertaken. Members are also concerned about when they will be able to have access to the investigation report. As I said, family members have made use of legal proceedings. Well, before the 13th of June, the DOJ will make arrangements to give access of the report to members, to the family members, and we will see what arrangements we can make so that the legislators will also have access to the report, with some parts being covered. As soon as possible after the deadline, which is the 13th of June, we would like members to be able to have access to the report. Please liaise with the Secretariat so that members will be able to see the report. I have to ask members if they would support the 2 legislative amendments. Next is the next item, proposed creation of a supernumerary directorate post for supporting the development of the maritime industry. Let me invite the administration to join us. It will still be Ms. Hon Chan, Deputy Secretary, and Mr. Curley, Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing. Deputy Secretary, please take us through the paper. Thank you. The paper seeks members' views and support on a proposal to create a supernumerary directorate post of Administrative Officer Staff Grade C in Division 5 of the Transport Branch of the THB for about 5 years, to assist in taking forward policies and initiatives in fostering the development of Hong Kong's maritime industry, enhancing Hong Kong's position as an international maritime center. Well, enhancing Hong Kong's position as an IMC International Maritime Center will will enhance Hong Kong's position. It also ties in with the national policy. With the announcement of the One Belt, One Road, we need to enhance and strengthen Hong Kong's position as an IMC to face stiff competitions from other places. In the coming few years, we think that it will be a crucial time. We have to meet the development needs of the trade. We need to put in place a number of measures, including promoting the establishment of new maritime bodies to promote cooperation between government, the trade, and the academic, to undertake policy studies to enhance manpower training policies, to make better plans, and also arrangements related to avoidance of double taxation. Division 5 of the Transport Branch is responsible of development of logistics and shipping. Apart from a D3, there is a D2. That is an AOSGC, who is responsible for logistics, and a D1, which is the Chief Maritime Officer, responsible for shipping and port development. As we've said, that there are a lot of initiatives to be followed up. Because of the nature and complexity, we propose to create a supernumerary directory post of AOSGC D2 for 5 years. It will be 5 years because we have a heavy workload in the coming few years. We will take into account the progress of work. Say, for example, establishing a new maritime body, we will reconsider our position. With the support of the panel, we will submit the proposal to the ESC and seek support from the FC. Thank you. THB seeks members' views and support to create a supernumerary directorate post of AOSGC in Division 5 of the Transport Branch for 5 years to assist in taking forward the government's policy commitments and initiatives and enhance Hong Kong's position as an IMC and to foster the development of Hong Kong's maritime industry. Members, any questions? We have limited time. We have Mr. Frankie Yik, UC Wing, and Tanka Biu. 3 minutes, okay? Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you. The shipping and logistics industry strongly support this proposed creation of a post. As the DS said, that work is complex and covers a wide area, and this post will have to be familiar with the operation of the trade, but there aren't many possible candidates. So when do you think you'll be able to recruit someone? This is a civil service post set at D2. It will be an administrative officer to support the D3 and the team to communicate effectively with the trade to find out the development need of the trade and to formulate policies and measures. This individual will cooperate with the academia and the trade to seize the opportunities to formulate effective policies to promote the development of the trade. I think Mr. Yik means it's difficult to actually find someone because you need an experience. It may be a civil service post, but you still need the experience. Or you're just going to find anyone to deal with it and to learn on the job. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, we realize that it's going to be an AO, but we hope that it's someone with experience to actually help the development of the trade and not someone who don't know anything about it. We can make suggestions and tell the CSB what requirements we need. Say, for example, experience and knowledge of a certain area. And as we've said, that we will have close liaison with the trade. So for an administrative officer, apart from their own experience, they will learn on the job. And if it's someone industrious, it will be more effective. Of course, they're expected to learn on the job, but at least they need relevant experience to start with. Mr. U.C. Wing. We have the 13th five-year plan and the One Belt, One Road. Hong Kong plays a vital role, so I support the creation of this post. But the information from your paper is this. Paragraph 13. We rank 4th in the world. So, will we be able to enhance the percentage and the ranking and about the One Belt, One Road? It's been actively promoted on the mainland. What role will Hong Kong play so that we can show our importance? I will extend this meeting by 15 minutes. DS. There are two questions. First, whether we have any figures as an indicator. We may not have scientific indicators, but shipping faces fierce competition. We have to maintain our competitiveness. When it comes to shipping register, we rank the 4th with 96 million. Well, people will look at the services provided, and if the ship flies our flag, whether there will be preferential treatment given or whether there is a higher chance for the vessel to be detained. It's about our brand. The MD has done a lot, and we will do our best to maintain our competitiveness to provide quality service. About the second question, that there are a lot of shipping companies on the mainland, and how can Hong Kong maintain its advantage? As the chief executive said, that we have an advantage. Under the one country, two systems, we have an advantage in our own system, and that is not enjoyed by mainland companies. We have a free entry and exit, and we will keep this advantage.
Last few years, in the area of arbitration, our legal system, insurance, and finance, I think we have a stronger foundation, and we will continue to leverage on our competitive strengths and to help our country develop the one belt and one road system strategy. I hope you will give us, more detailed information, because when you go to the ESC, members may ask you to provide more details. Thank you. Regarding the development of the shipping industry, we're talking about logistics, ocean-going vessels, and also passenger traffic. So both ocean-going and I think for someone with a medium level of qualification, it does offer very good prospects. But for what we're worried about is that while the industry is there, we do not have talents. We just heard that the shipping surveyors, many of the people who work on board vessels, like coxswains and so on. We are already short of these people in Hong Kong. So what I'm concerned about is how do you plan to have a plan to nurture our talents. I understand that the Ivy has offered more places for marine courses, but it's difficult for them to recruit people. For example, the coxswain has told me that even though he is a coxswain of an ocean-going vessel, but his qualification is even inferior to that of someone with a bachelor degree, and he's not getting a very, very generous salary. But in Australia, Class 1 coxswain's qualification is equal to that of someone with a bachelor degree, but not so in Hong Kong. But if someone has to attend university, obtain the qualification, eventually still have to work on board a vessel. So the prospect is not very clear. So other than developing the industry, I think talent is very important. And regarding the new shipping organization, I hope that you will at least invite the trade union for Hong Kong sailors trade unions. Many of the people have actually sit for examinations to promote it from Class 2 to Class 1 sailors, and they've used the simulators at the union to help them with the training. So I hope you will also collaborate with the trade union when you train new talents. In terms of training, there are two aspects. Mr. Kapi already said that for experience of operating ocean-going vessels, we have a fund to subsidize young people to attend the MSCI course at Ivy, and then they can work on board ocean-going vessels and apply for the qualification of a coxswain. At the same time, we are moving towards high value-added shipping services, which covers technology, finance, insurance, and legal services. We've now started a scheme which is very much supported by the industry. Starting from last summer, we offer some summer jobs for university students to attend these to have practice and do internship at these shipping companies, and the government will provide for a subsidy so that they will be able to earn a salary, and that the students can also learn about the different types of jobs which are on offer in the shipping industry. We offered more than 200 jobs last summer, and this year there will be more than 400. And these shipping companies are already recruiting university students to take up these summer internships. So we're therefore attracting more people to join the shipping industry. Any further questions from members? If not, then I'd like to ask whether members support this proposal for the creation of the post. Yes? Thank you very much. AOB. Do members have any AOB to bring up? If not, the date of our next meeting will be the 6th of June at 9 a.m. Thank you very much. We are now adjourned.